So welcome back to obviously Fight Talk, and I'm delighted to say we are now joined by the perfect record 9-0, the former BAMA light heavyweight champion, now UFC fighter, fighting at UFC 209. Welcome to obviously Fight Talk, Paul Bearjew, Craig.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're very well, me man. Absolutely delighted as well to get you on. You're somebody, you may not remember this, but when you fought in BAMA in Dublin, I was the MC who actually introduced you that night. So
I do remember. I remember it very well.
Yeah, screaming in your face. Normally when I get to the fighter, I say the presenting, and then I start roaring the name. And not too many times I get intimidated, but fuck me, I was intimidated. You're a big bastard.
I'm a lover, man. I'm a lover.
That night you fought Carl Moore, if memory serves me right, and you got the win in the second round. So Paul, I'm gonna. Sometimes I do this when we have guests on. I want to almost go backwards before we get to where you are now. So, just as a young man growing up in Scotland, what was your first exposure to MMA or combat sports? A lot of people say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that type of thing. But what was your first exposure?
Yeah, hey, I'm an 80s kid, so the Ninja Mutant Turtles were the Dogs Balearics back then. But my first sort of introduction to any sort of martial arts was guys like Bruce Lee. You know, growing up watching these guys, thinking, you're badass. Guys like Jet Li, who doesn't like a wee bit of Van Damme, you know, Steven Seagal, until you get a bit older and you realise he's a bit of a fraud, you know, all this sort of fucking hand movement, and there's guys jump all over the spot. But that was my first introduction to martial arts, and I always wanted to do it, but my parents never ever sent me into that. You know, I grew up in the west of Scotland where it's football. So the option I had was football. So I played football, I enjoyed my time playing football, went to playing football, to coaching football, and then stopped playing football, started lifting weights, and then for lifting weights, I then got into doing mixed. Didn't even know what the UFC was. And I got introduced to this, my friends locked me down, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen, you know, when you're taking a guy's arm and you're going to snap it and you see the panic in his face. Perfect, man. It's a nice feeling. So I found I was very good at that, and then boxing, I started doing a bit of boxing with my coach Lawrence Murphy, and then I just fired the two of them together. Went in my first amateur fight against a prospect down in Sunderland. I think the guy was called Gary Civils, and from that I ended up tapping him in the first round. I remember this very well. I had a group of guys outside wanting to knock lumps out of me because I beat Gary Civils. I found this hilarious, and the promoter comes in and he says, "You can't leave." And I said, "How not?" And he went, "Because his pals are all waiting outside to knock your pie in." And I said, "Well, surely they've seen me knock his pie in and not be waiting there." So it just kind of spiralled out of control. You know, I was an amateur. I had an unbeaten record there, about 8-0, and then I went pro, and the same sort of thing. I just started racking up wins. I was getting a bit of, wasn't getting a lot of love because the guys I was fighting, they were deemed as not being as good as what was out there, and I was picking all the hard fights. You know, we were taking for the top 10, but when it came to fight time, the fights all cancelled, and I ended up fighting just some guy to treat, which is pretty dangerous trying to make a career in MMA. And then from
just losing you there a little bit.
What we do is we just lost Paul there, so what we do is we'll end the call, we just call him back there, so you'll get some lovely bloop, and then we'll be back. Oh.
Right, cool. We're back.
We're back.
You're saying we just lost your
Looks like
connection a little bit.
yeah.
So sorry, you were just saying you took the top 10 guy. The people were saying you weren't fighting at a caliber there, and we lost you then.
Yeah. So the first test we had was BAMA, and we were giving Carol Moore. Yeah. Now I remember saying at the time in one interview, I said, all I need is to let people hear me talk, and like everything I do in the cage, I can back up my talk. I mean, I'm not an aggressive guy that says I'm going to smash you. I'm like, I know what I can do with my abilities, and I was right. I beat Carol Moore, took a 0, and there's people been saying to me, wait till Carol Moore gets to the UFC. He's coming for you, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm Carol Moore's only loss. Why would Carol Moore risk no getting to the? Why would Carol Moore come into the UFC and risk getting bombed out to try and pick a fight with me? So then I went for Carol Moore to Martin Lazars, who beat Brett McDermott for the BAMA light heavyweight champion. and then I went and I beat him in quite a convincingly fashion. You know, I took him out in the first round, a guy who was dangerous. He was a grappler, he was strong in the clinch, and I beat him. And I beat him at stand-up as well. And then from that, we were meant to fight Chris Fields. Unfortunately, that never happened. That was going to be a great fight. You know, we had that wee bit of backlash behind the stages at Bama, and it was going to be a good fight, man. It was still going my way, and we couldn't agree a deal, myself and Bama, for what was after my contract had ended, and the UFC came in and snapped me up within days of my contract being over.
And was that something that when the fight fell through with Fields, do you remember when the UFC contacted you? Do you know where you were, and talk us through the procedure? Because we always hear of fighters getting signed. Is it the likes of Sean Shelby or Joe Silva contacting you, or does it go through the manager, or what's the process there?
It went through my coach Brian Gallagher. It went through him. He got the phone call, and I was pottering about. I'd sort of written off 2016 as that's it over. I'm not going to fight, because I didn't fight in last November was the last time I'd fought. So it was a whole year I was out, and the UFC, I was like, there's no chance of them going to put me in an American card. I was like, right, we made a push for the Belfast card, and it never pulled off, and I was quite disappointed, and I was a bit down because I wanted it then, and I was ready for it. And then all of a sudden I get this phone call to my coach at like 11:30 at night saying, what are you doing the 17th of December? And I was like, are you going to UFC? And he's like, yeah. And that was it. And then within about hours, they'd filed over all this paperwork, and I'm talking like hours, and it was everything, and it was a bit intense. And I went through it all, and that was us. We were signed to the UFC. We are a dangerous opponent again, another unbeaten fighter, 2 wins in the UFC, 12-0 as a pro fighter. So, and yet again, we beat him in the second round. It's like some sort of fairy tale I'm living, man. I'm just waiting for it to be. I'm just waiting to be woken up.
Something you always hear as well, Paul, is the UFC jitters. This is something that they always talk about. Rogan always says it in commentary. You know, there's a difference between coming in like you were going in as an undefeated fighter, but stepping into that UFC octagon is just a whole new level. So, is the UFC jitters such a thing? Did it exist for you stepping in there?
Not for me. You know, I tried to soak up as much of that as possible. You know, the whole experience of walking out, the whole experience of dealing with people, dealing with the guys in the back, dealing with the California State Boxing Commission. I tried to soak up as much of that as possible, because I'm in this journey for memories. Like, money comes and goes, but memories stay with you until you die, man, and that's what I'm looking for. And I remember walking out, and they've got this big banner round the Capital One or Central One Stadium, and it was saying Paul Bearjew Craig, and I was thinking, this is like badass. And then there's this wee picture of me up on the screen, and I'm like, that was pretty cool. The minute I get in the cage, do my wee ritual where I run around the cage, I was ready to go. I was ready to throw down, man. Didn't feel out my depth, felt natural, felt like this is what I was putting myself to do. Kick dick.
With regards to getting to the UFC as well, do you feel like Bama, obviously, you know, we've other promotions as well, but Bama recently have had a flood of fighters between Mark Diakiese, yourself, Mark Godbeer, who we hope to have on the show soon. Getting the call.
He's just there smile with folk. He's just beating people up.
Do you feel like Bama is the perfect platform as a European show for the step?
Definitely. You know, I had to test myself because people were saying he's never been tested, and Bama's the perfect place to do that. And what I said in one of my interviews is I think you'll find that some of the toughest opponents you're going to come across are in these shows, not in the UFC, in places like Cage Warriors, Bama, EFC, ACB. All these shows have got guys who are wanting to get to this next level, this dream, and they're fighting for it, and they're fighting a lot harder than guys who are in the UFC. That's just my opinion, and that's the way I'm looking at it. But I think you can find some of the toughest opponents are in these promotions.
Do you think a couple of years ago we looked at the kind of American wrestlers, the guys coming up through the American scene and the guys coming up through the Brazilian scene, but it seems like in the past couple of years, like you said, some of the best guys that are in the UFC right now have come up through the European scene. Do you see the growth in the Europe scene?
I see a massive growth within the UK and European scene of MMA. When I first started this sport, there wasn't a lot of European guys in UFC. There wasn't a lot of UK guys in the UFC, and there was no Scottish guys. So now you're looking at it, and we're stacked heavy with European, Scottish, and the UK guys. Ireland was the first to bridge the way. Conor McGregor, and then he brought in all his pals. Man, they just smothered the place, and that opened up doors for small nations like ourselves, which is a good thing.
You can see that as well now with the Welsh fighters as well coming in. It's almost, the doors have been kicked down, and once it's almost like the younger stars coming up as well. The path is there; they can see it. It's something that's definitely possible. But we spoke about this previously on the show as well. The caliber of European MMA has literally gone through the roof. It used to be like every time, like I even remember just as far back as Dan Hardy, and that wasn't that long ago, that Joe Rogan would always go, yeah, but the wrestling. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it got to the stage where, sure, they'll just take them down and beat them up. They're European. But then you see guys like yourself winning with submissions, pulling submissions out of somewhere. Now, I do have to mention, we did have the Housewife's Choice Chris Fields on last week. 2 weeks ago. He did say, hopefully down the patches will meet, just because he thinks, like you said, it'd be a good fight. He almost pulled a George St. Pierre and said he wasn't impressed with your performance. But he did say it was a superb submission that you won by.
My UFC performance, performance of the night, everybody thought that this guy was just going to walk over the top of me. He was going to beat me in the stand-up, and he was a dangerous grappler as well. And you know what? For him to say that he wasn't impressed with it, man, I showed some cracking stand-up. That guy's face looked like it was Frankenstein's. His face was bust open, and I showed takedowns, and I won with an impressive submission. Not only that, see with regards to your wrestling, man, Brian Stann was slating me for my wrestling. This guy's not a wrestler. I was like, oh, shit. So I got my Foxcatcher t-shirt on, my John DuPont t-shirt, and I said at my tweet says, this t-shirt says, I can wrestle like fuck.
Is that something that, obviously you've watched the fight back, but when you're cage side, when you're over near the commentators, you'd always hear, I tend to do it as well on some shows that I'm involved in that on, but you always hear Rogan going, yeah, and they're right in front of me. Can you actually hear them and sort of hear what they're doing?
Yeah, you can hear, I could hear everything they were saying. And when I had the guillotine in the first round, I could hear Brian Stann saying, "Oh, it's tied. He needs to scoot his hips." So he was coaching me for the side. I was like, Brian, I'm trying. I just can't get it, brother. But no, you can hear every word, and you can, all you can hear is a wee dangly Scottish guy in my corner, my coach, man. When I watch that back, all I hear is him, jab, cross. You could hear every word he says. So that's a good corner to have in.
Talk about the finish, because a lot of people were surprised that you pulled guard, and it obviously paid dividends because you got the submission. But is that something that you train? Is that something in training that you actually do, or was it just a spur of the moment thing? Did you feel comfortable?
Well, the finish was set up where we come in, and I cracked him some good shots standing up. I had put in that guillotine. We'd stood back up. I had a good stiff jab. Had fired in some kicks, some body kicks. And when I'm in my corner, Brian, my coach, said to me, he said, "Paul, this guy's called Frankenstein because he allows people to punch the living daylights out of him, and then they gas, and then he'll attack them. And that's how he's won fights. He's done it 12 times. That's how he's won his 12 fights." So I had that in the back of my head. So when I had him up against the cage, and I was landing some heavy shots, and I seen this opportunity, and I was like, he's gassed. He's not going to be able to hold me on the deck. So when I pulled him in, and then he stood up, I was like, why is he doing this? And he tried to do this really shitty pass and fling an overhand right at the same time. And the triangle was there, so I fired in the triangle. He adjusted his hips, so it was the armbar that was there. And I get criticised for somebody on like a forum was telling me, well, you never cross your legs when you're doing an armbar. And I was like, fuck up, did you do a submission in the UFC?
He probably did, but it was on UFC EA Sports, so you know what I
mean? It's true, but my legs were crossed because I'm then transitioning to get the triangle again. So if I just went for that armbar and I'd lost it, then I'd lost everything I'd worked for. So you've always got to be a few moves ahead, and that's where it came from. It wasn't a fact that, because somebody asked me, were you hurt? Well, I wasn't. I'd taken these shots. I spar with Mark Godbeer, man. Mark Godbeer hits like a fucking train. So I'm not worried about taking shots. I spar with pro boxers who hit hard as well. Actual guys who are whole game plan is to punch the face off you. So I'm not worried about taking shots. I just didn't want to gas and look like an absolute dick and get done in the fucking second round by gassing. So I pulled him on top of me, and the rest is history.
Your opponent coming up now, Tyson Pedro, he's 5-0 and he has 4 wins by submission. So again, is this something, I know the competition, you've plenty of wins by submission as well. Is that something you're looking forward to, is testing yourself on the ground, or what do you know? Obviously game plans are going to be kept in camp, but first impressions, what's your outlook on this fight and what do you know of Tyson?
Well, I never watch my opponents just because if you wait for one thing to happen in the fight and it might never come, then you've trained for something that it's never going to happen. So I don't train for a specific moment. What I train for is an actual all-round fight. I train to improve, right? Brian Stann was slagging my wrestling, so I'm going to improve my wrestling. I'm always training boxing and always training jiu-jitsu. They're my, I enjoy them, and I'm in training them every single day. For what I know about him, give me a second, just this door's open.
Yep, no worries.
For what I know about him, through what my coach has said, he's told me that he used to be an amateur boxer. Now you get boxers and you get boxers. I'm training with pro boxers. I spar with pro boxers and I can hold my own. So I'm happy to stand up and crack with him. On the deck, I feel like my submission for MMA is it works well. I've got this nice balance. And if he takes me to the ground, I think he's going to get subbed. I don't see it going anywhere else. So I'm happy. If it stays standing, I'll knock him out. I've got power in my hands, and I've seen he's been put down a few times. He's been put in his arse a few times, so I'm happy to do that again for him.
Yeah. But following your last fight in the post-fight scrum, you did mention that you wanted somebody in the top 15. You obviously didn't get it. Was that because, did you accept this fight because it's the only one that was available, or are you a little bit disappointed you didn't get somebody in the top 15, or what happened there?
Well, we had, we're obviously, Mark Godbeer's up here doing his training camp, and he said, listen, I want to come up and train with you and the guys at the Scottish Hit Squad for my fight camp. He's fighting 209. So we seen it as a great opportunity to say, we'll ask for this card, or we'll ask for the card in Vegas, because we've got the Friday and the Saturday. So we messaged the matchmaker and said, can we get a fight in Vegas? Now, they told us both cards were fully booked, and then a few days later come back with this opponent. Now, he wasn't what I wanted, because I was set that I wanted this top 15 opponent. I wanted somebody of worth. And I'm not saying that Tyson Pedro isn't of worth. What I'm saying is I was trying to make some progress through the top ranking guys. But when the UFC come and ask you, when you've asked for a show and the UFC come with a fighter, you can't really knock it back, and that's why I took this fight. And I'm glad I took it. It's a big card. We've had a few fights released for like Wonderboy Thompson, and we've got like Alistair Overeem against Mark Hunt. So it's going to be a big card for me, and especially for Mark.
And that's something, again, when you have the big superstars on the card, as well as in the fights that I know Hunt and Overeem is confirmed. Wonderboy and Woodley isn't yet confirmed, although Wonderboy has. Yeah, he's tweeted a picture of the contract saying just waiting on you, Woodley.
Khabib said he's in camp for 209.
Yeah, Khabib's in camp, and this is the sort of thing that it's when these lads, when you go in there, if you put on a show, all of a sudden, the world is watching in that sense. And like in the 205 division, a couple of wins, and all of a sudden, you know what I mean, you're on the tip of everyone's tongue, and you're pushing there. Is that something, again, that looking at the division, how do you think you stand with the top 5 guys? Obviously, being a fighter, you're going to say, yeah, that's the realistic. But 2017, what's realistic for Paul Craig?
2017, I said that I would take this fight as a top 15 opponent. So that's me set back. But I'm hoping they're coming to Glasgow. We've heard rumours of summertime in Glasgow. So I'm hoping then. I'm hoping I get a good opponent. I'm hoping my headline. Beat him, regardless of who it is. And then I'm just going to keep progressing. I want 5 fights by the end of this year. I would love to be fighting for the belt by the end of the year. We know this division isn't stacked. We know the guys on their way out. Guys have all fought each other. They're needing some new blood within this, and I think I'm the guy to do it. I'm 9-0. I know for a fact I'm going to be 10-0, and I'll be able to hang with these guys. There's nobody in the UFC that's not beatable, apart from Demetrius Johnson. He's like a freak.
I'd say I'd say a catchweight belt. My money's on you.
He weighs like one of my arms. But no man is unbeatable. No man in there. If you train hard enough and you've got the belief, man, anything can happen. You know, it's the UFC. We've seen guys lose their belt. We've seen guys like going on a tear up and losing their belt, apart from Jon Jones, who loses his own belt. But we've seen guys go and we've been like, he's the ultimate, and then he get done in. So anything can happen.
And that's somebody you're mentioning, Jon Jones. There brings me. Jon Jones is scheduled to come back in July, and again, a lot of people consider, in some way disrespectfully to DC, they still consider Jon Jones the real light heavyweight champion. Again, he's obviously the pinnacle of your weight class of the sport. A lot consider him the pound for pound. Is that a fight that down the line, that's the dream fight?
Yep. My coach said we were talking about going over to America and doing a fight camp. Just hypothetically, because we've got everything all under one roof in Scotland here. And I said, where would you like to go? And I said, what about like Jackson's? And he said, nah. And I said, how no, wait, you've got some really good guys there, you know, they're all savages. And he said, why would I want you to fight a guy, to train with a guy you're going to beat? And I love that attitude of my coach, man. We're not the finished product. We are a year away from the finished product to be fighting for that belt. And I know we're a year away from that. But every day a little better, every day a little tougher, every day a little bit uglier. So I'm looking forward to what this year can bring for me, and I believe Jon Jones, if he's back in the mix, then that'd be a great fight for me. You know.
Again, you won over some Irish hearts when you walked out Obama wearing the Dublin jersey, but you almost rescinded that love that we had for you when you called out and had the arguments with Chris Fields. I grew up with Chris Fields. I know him; he's from the same neighbourhood as me, but. You know, I think respect, that fight was more respect with the two of you. Are selling the fight. Everybody understands that, and it was great crack to see it as well. We're big fans of you here on the show. We're going to wish you the best of luck on it. Come back on when you get your W. You're welcome back on, obviously, Fight Talk anytime. Thanks for taking the time to come on with us. Get out and tell Godbeard to get on his messenger and answer us back.
I will do, guys. Listen, thank you for your time, and cheers for the love. And I'll know that's the point Scotland and the UK. In Ireland.
And listen, best of luck, and thanks again for taking the time. And
thanks, guys.
Man. Take care. Cheers.